So welcome again to the Career Month webinar for What's Your Leadership Style? Today we'll hear from Christina Holloway, who is a 2011 graduate from University of Chicago with a Master's of Liberal Arts from the Graham School. She's a leadership development and business coach. Actually, if you read Forbes, just this week she was featured in the Forbes Coach Council for entrepreneurs sharing their advice for what they wish they had known earlier. And she shared some advice about communication styles, that you should learn about other people's communication styles and your own, so that you know how to communicate to reduce conflict and boost your own confidence. Also, in this particular webinar, Christina is going to talk to us about how to identify your current leadership style, what strength-based feedback is most important to you, and give you some techniques and resources to improve your leadership style today. So I'm sure this is going to be a really innovative and exciting webinar that will help you to lead your teams better and get drastically higher levels of performance in your work. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Christina to share this wonderful information with us.
Yes, thank you. Hello. Hi, everyone. It's my absolute pleasure to be speaking to you today during this University of Chicago webinar, and I was thrilled to be invited to speak, and I can't wait to get started. First, I did want to say thank you to Rachel for the lovely introduction. That was a surprise about Forbes that did just come out this week, and I was very excited to see it featured. And I'd also like to give a big thank you to everyone who's attending, and thanks for taking time out of your day for the webinar during your lunch break, and I'll do my best to make it worth your while. So yeah, as Rachel mentioned, today's webinar will cover a number of points. So let's just see what we have. So what we're going to talk about is the 5 important pillars of leadership. We're going to discuss the 5 important pillars of leadership, and then we're going to talk about a simple framework that I developed that helps you take those talents that into your strengths, and then put them into your business career and how to grow and evolve from there. And then in the end, I'm going to share with you a customized approach to leadership development based on the 5 pillars of leadership and the framework, and then some bonus material as a thank you for attending the webinar. And the bonus material includes some downloadables and ebooks, and I'd like to also put up here my email address for anyone who cannot finish the entire webinar today, or if you've decided to listen in at a later time. Here's my email address. Please feel free to reach out to me. I wanted to make sure that you know I'm open for receiving questions after the webinar. And if you send me your email address, I'll send you the additional bonus materials, etc., as we go through the program. So open to open discussion and communication after the webinar. Okay, so just a little introduction about myself. I know Rachel covered quite a few things, but I started my business as a management consultant. I owned a boutique management consultant for 16 years, and the past 3 years I've been an executive coach. And recently I was just named as a mentor coach to 1871. For those who are not familiar with 1871, it is an incubator for tech startups, and it's located in Chicago at the Merchandise Mart. It has the distinction of being the largest incubator in the country, and they've just created a mentor program where coaches and other professionals can come in and give very important advice to these tech startup owners in an effort for them to accelerate their growth into the marketplace. I also have a University of Chicago degree. I have a Master of Liberal Arts from the Graham School, and I was just absolutely thrilled to be participating in that program. It was life-changing, to say the least. In addition, I have been positioned myself as a thought leader. I gave a speaking engagement at Yale University's Women in Management Forum, and I've been featured not only in Forbes, but as Fast Company, the Huffington Post, and Addicted to Success, and I'm a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. As far as my business goes, I wanted to kind of make a point that once I shifted into the coaching work, I had decided that I wanted to have a giving program as part of my coaching business, and I am thrilled to be able to mention that I work specifically with Connections for Abused Women and Their Children. It is a Chicago-based nonprofit that helps women and their families escape the trauma of domestic violence. This photo that I'm sharing here is in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Week, I'm sorry, there's a whole month for it. And this also was to commemorate the Purple Purse Challenge. So I'm wearing purple, and I have a dog. My dog Augie is wearing the Purple Purse charm, and this I had just recently shared on social media as a way to increase the giving program for the Connections for Abused Women and Children. So this to me is a very important element of my business, and it's something that I communicate quite often, that I want people to understand. It's not just when you purchase my products or my services, but you're also giving back to the community. I find that very important. So that's me. That's my introduction. And we can get started now on the program. And I believe, Rachel, we have our first poll. And here's our polling question. So what we want to know is what drew you to the webinar today? And I think the polling will be open, and Rachel will be able to manage that. Sure. And these are the options. I wanted to be a better leader. I want to better define my leadership style. I want to strengthen my professional relationships, or I want to lead with my strengths. And then Rachel, just let me know how the answers are coming in.
Yep, folks are answering, so we'll give them just a couple more seconds. Oh, still a few more jumping in.
Oh, that's great.
All right, so we're going to close the poll. And we can see our results on the screen. I want to be a better leader is 35%. I want to better define my leadership style, received 27%. I want to strengthen my professional relationships, received 19%. I want to lead with my strengths, received 19%.
Fabulous. So as I suspected, we have a healthy representation from each one. So this is kind of where I figured these are pretty similar in their makeup, and the goal really is for leadership development for us to get each of these wants and needs, and then make them a part of our leadership development. That's what each of those question types was anyway, that each of them contributes in some way to what leadership development actually is. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 pillars. Oops. The 5 pillars of leadership. So this is the first part of the presentation, is about discussing what the foundation is for developing your leadership style or your leadership persona. And these 5 elements are as follows: figuring out what your mission is, taking any attitude or behavior problems and addressing them, developing a strategy for moving forward, strengthening your network so that you're meeting the right people who can help you move forward, and then being able to communicate effectively. And communication is a big element, so I'm going to spend a little extra time on communication. So these are the areas where we'll find that most people develop themselves as a leader. This is where they start their strategy. And starting with number 1, how you define your mission. So this is where you want to take your time to figure out exactly what is it that you want to do. What is your long-term vision for yourself, for your career, for the business that you've created, for someone else's business where you really want to contribute in a meaningful way? And then figure out what your most important values are, because you want to navigate the world or navigate your career based on your values, where you find things that are most important to you, and then be able to express yourself authentically. So you also want to define what high performance means to you. It's not just, high performance is a really big word, and it's something that gets thrown around quite a bit, but how do you define high performance in relation to the way you perform? What are you doing today, and what could you be doing tomorrow that amplifies how you're working? And then, of course, you want to find out what these key relationships are that are going to help you move forward. And right now, in defining your mission, you're just taking a snapshot of where you are today, evaluating where you want to be, and then creating a high-level plan for how you want that to shape out, either a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. 10 years is pretty big, but you can still do it and still create an arc for yourself. So most people go to define your mission because they're faced with a number of difficult questions. This is usually the time when we want to reevaluate exactly why we're doing the job we're doing and where else could we find fulfillment. So typical questions are about how many crises do you address every day? How many requests for your time distract you from achieving your real goals and handling your primary responsibilities? And how often do people in your organization ask you to do things that they should be doing? So once you find that this is starting to encroach on you, typically that's the time that people turn around and say, well, this isn't working for me, I need to find a new path. So defining your mission is the first step. Then the second pillar is about your attitude and behavior. So I'll just start right now that I'm going to say that as normally adjusted people, we typically have a good attitude. We typically have good behavior. We know how to interact in society, and we know how to behave appropriately in general. But the issue here when we want to find new leadership potential for ourselves is to not just look at when we're behaving well. It's to look at the times where we're being, when we're facing conflict or miscommunication or deadlines where things are really falling apart, and you kind of want to take a step back the next time you see that and ask yourself, what was my attitude when I was going through this difficult stretch? What kind of behavior did I exhibit where I'd really like to get a handle on it and not do that? So these are the times that you evaluate exactly where am I doing okay and where do I need a little bit of improvement. And the best place to look for improvement is to look in areas where you're stressed out, or you're finding that you aren't able to make a decision quickly, or you're doing the react versus respond. We all have it, no matter what level. Even people at the highest echelons are all facing, where could I have adjusted my behavior or adjusted my attitude? So this is a great area for us to do internal work and to kind of decide, are these behaviors and attitudes holding me back from bigger things that I want? And once we find those, make a list of those, then we can start tweaking them. And small change always makes a big difference. So any type of small thing that you think, oh, I don't know about this, if you start experimenting with it, you'll find it's really going to shift you into a new way. So that's number 2. Number 3, after we've done all of the internal work, we now want to develop our strategy. And our strategy is going to consist of assessing exactly where you are today, then taking a look at opportunities. So looking at opportunities doesn't just mean, oh, well, I'm going to just look at the same stuff. You're looking at new opportunities that you may not have considered before. You may not have considered those opportunities before you realized what your values are. You may not have considered those opportunities before you realized, well, my behavior might be holding me back from having that kind of opportunity. It never occurred to me before. And then from there, you're going to find these new opportunities, and hopefully they'll stretch you outside your comfort zone, putting you a little bit on the fringe of comfort. And then you're going to look at your strengths, because that's what's going to propel you forward. You can see in the photograph that it says strengths versus weaknesses, but I am a strengths-based coach, and everything that I do is based on developing your strengths to help you move forward. So this this is the most important part of the coaching process, is to help people no longer to focus on weaknesses, and it's okay if you want to list out weaknesses that you perceive, because it's all about a perception. So it's okay to list out weaknesses you perceive, but you really want to focus your strengths. And then you want to pick a project or an initiative or a new business venture that's going to help you move forward using those strengths and that strategy. Oops. The 4th one is strengthen your power network. And of course, this is about making sure that you have the right people in your network that are going to help you move forward quickly and effectively. So it's more about targeting people specifically and not just saying yes to anybody who wants to have coffee with you, et cetera, et cetera. You want to start targeting people who can help you move forward, and then you want to start building meaningful relationships with those people. And the 5th and last one is about communicating with style. So when I say communicating, it's not just about the way you write or the way you speak, but it's also about the way you present yourself, how you walk in the room. What are you communicating in your whole persona? who you are as a full person. And when someone interacts with you, what are they seeing? What are you communicating in body language? What are you communicating the way you dress? What are you communicating in the way you speak to them? And what are you communicating in the way you respond to anybody who sends you a note or an email or reaches out to you for advice or for help? So the biggest, most important part of it is that you want to be simple and direct, and that you want to hold your authority. You want to be able to walk into a room or a situation or a problem and be able to hold your authority and feel confident in what you're doing, who you are, and why you're there. This one is a very important pillar, and it brings the other four in line, and so that you can put them all together in a bundle, put them inside you, and then be able to present yourself effectively going forward. Okay, so these are the 5 pillars of leadership. And I think now that we've gone through it, we're about halfway through, and we have another poll. So I would love to know, after going through these, what do you think a successful leader looks like? So which elements do you think contribute most to their success? Do you think it would be attitude and behavior? Would it be luck? Would it be opportunity? Would it be all of the above? And then Rachel, just let me know as the answers come in.
Yep, we have folks answering. We'll give them a little bit more time.
Okay.
We have about 60% of attendees have voted.
That's fabulous.
All right, if there anybody else, this is sort of your last chance to vote before I close the poll. Okay. And the results I have are attitude, 21%, behavior, 17%, luck, 0%, opportunity, 4%, all of the above, 58%.
Oh, this is great. And I love luck has no percent. No one thinks that you're lucky to be a leader. That's true. That's true. So it is a small little bit of a trick question, because as we've seen, we see this around us with any type of person who's in a leadership role, and we kind of ask ourselves, how did you get there? It must be a combination of luck and opportunity, and having your behavior and your attitude, but a little bit of a trick question, because attitude edges out a little bit more. You can have a luck and opportunity. You can have great behavior of knowing how to present yourself and push yourself in front of the right people. But if your attitude is slightly off, you may even be enormously successful. But an attitude with a little bit of rust on it, I'll put it that way, is going to hold you back even from bigger things, and not necessarily from bigger successes or bigger money, or however we define the tangibles, but also just having a better attitude is going to help you become the type of leadership that's really about being an authentic leader or an elegant leader, someone who's the full package. So all of the above and attitude are pretty close, but I would edge out attitude a little bit more. That's definitely the case. So after this poll, I think what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about the framework that I developed and what it means to be a next level leader. So I developed a next level leader program, and this is how I use my coaching. This is what I do in my coaching with my clients, and I work with clients across the board, people who are just starting out in the workforce, people who are at the middle management level and want to get to the next level, at the executive level, even people at the executive level who want to get to the C-suite. I do a lot of executive coaching. And I also work with people who have businesses. Maybe they just started their business and they really want to grow, or maybe they've had a small business or a medium-sized business and they want to take it to the next level with new revenue growth. So I work across the board with people who are really struggling with leadership issues, stepping into their power and being able to take an initiative or an idea or some sort of internal passion and turning it into something that's bigger, something else that can give them self-fulfillment. And my goal, I set a pretty big goal for myself. So for my Next Level Leader program, I set a goal of helping 1 million people transform their careers, and I should have said careers and businesses, but owning a business is the same as that's your career. That's what you've decided to devote yourself to, and I'm helping these people move from one level to the next. I have an approach which is visibility, reputation, and trust, and then developing yourself into a responsible leader. This is what my program is. So let's start just taking a minute to define leadership development. Clearly, you can see that it's a pretty big topic. Google has a lot of results, 78 million results, and even Harvard Business Review has almost 2,000 articles just on leadership development out of their whole archive of articles. So this is a big topic, it's growing, and it's something that people really want to focus on for developing for themselves. I like to keep the quote in mind from Peter Drucker, which is that management is doing things right, but leadership is doing the right things. And as eloquently as he put it, and it makes it sound so simple, it really is not. Leadership is not easy, but it's not impossible. And it's something that we can all learn to do, especially when we tap our talents and our skills and our strengths and do it the right way. So my definition for leadership development is the process an individual takes to expand their leadership potential. So you want to include that as a strategic thinker, as an influencer in their field, and as someone who inspires others to develop their own skills and potential. So those three things are really important. That's what I find important when it comes to leadership development. This is the framework that I developed, and I'll go through it very quickly. There are three elements in my leadership development framework, and we've seen it as part of the 5 pillars, where the first part is to get known. So strategically figuring out who you want to see your achievements, and then getting respected, which is to put yourself out there and show them what kind of person you are, what kind of work you do, how much you have, what your values and your mission are, and how easily or how well you can actually handle the job that comes to you. And then at the last part is to get trusted. And that's for people who are in power positions, decision makers, to come to you and say, I trust you with this project. I'd really like you to head it up, and let's see what you can do. And from there, you've developed yourself as a next level leader, a responsible leader, and someone who actually, I hope, can influence the people behind you to behave the same way, because that's how you develop culture. You develop a business culture by behaving and being in your space as the type of person you want to see others behave as well. So for me, there are 4 steps to leadership development, and this is the part where I'm just going to give some resources and some additional information that I use when I do my coaching work. So what we want to do is develop our leadership style. And now we'll do that one last. So in addition, as I mentioned before, developing your strengths is incredibly important. Cultivating a positive environment is very important. And then developing emotional awareness is also something. If you have all 4 of these and you have and you've been working on them through the 5 pillars and through the framework, this is where you're going to find success. So if you want to work on strengths development, there are a number of assessments out there. I've done expensive ones that are up to $300, and I've done really inexpensive ones, but I found that the Clifton Strengths Finder is quite valuable. It is not time-consuming, it is not expensive, and in fact, I found that this one is very similar to a very expensive one that I took, and it came back with similar results. I just think this is cost-effective, and it's available in the marketplace pretty easily, and I encourage everyone I work with to take the Strengths Finder. For positive reinforcement, I have a couple of books here that I've read. Bringing Out the Best in People is a good book, and then Nudge, of course, Thaler and Sunstein. I received this book as a gift 4 years ago, and I refer everybody to read it. I just walk around saying you should really read Nudge. So I was happy to see that he had won the Nobel Prize. It was really, really well deserved, and I love this book for positive reinforcement and understanding why people make the choices they do and how they can make better choices for their own advantage. For emotional intelligence, again, Nicholas Epley is also a professor at the Booth School, and his book, Mind Wise, Why We Misunderstand What Others Think, Believe, Feel, and Want. This one is a great one of awareness and perception, where we make mistakes in our understanding of what we think other people want of us. And then Act Like a Leader, Think Like a Leader. Herminia Ibarra is, her book is available on Harvard Business Review, and I think it's a downloadable. So, and I like this book a lot too. I reference this one quite a bit. So here we are, the last, this is the end. So through your specific leadership style, we wanted to develop our strengths, we want to develop our emotional intelligence, and we want to be able to, what was the other one? Sorry, I'm going too fast. Our strengths, our positive reinforcement, and our emotional intelligence, and that brings us to defining our leadership style. So just going to open it up a little bit now for comments today. We're not doing a third poll, but I actually had, for a fun exercise that I was going through with Rachel, was to try to find names of people that we see and identify as these type of leaders, where their leadership style shines through, people who we see in around us and about, and who we probably see in the news. I took the liberty of identifying each of them as what exactly their title is. And I want to give credit to the person who wrote it, Manfred F.R. Ketz de Vries, who wrote the article for the Harvard Business Review. It is available on the website to download and goes further into why leadership styles are important. And this is the final point I want to make is when you're able to do the 5 pillars and identify your strengths, you will also find out exactly what your leadership style is. And I believe very, very much that we all have the ability to be a leader in our field. We may not be the head of a big CEO, a big Fortune 500 company. We may not get to those levels of leadership that we see other people around us having, but that doesn't mean we don't have our own way of leading. That doesn't mean we can't apply what we have and be able to take command of a situation when it benefits us the most, and it benefits us and the people around us the most. And that doesn't mean that we don't have the potential for leadership. I don't believe at all that you can go in for work or a job or a project or anything and have someone say, I'm sorry, you're just not cut out for this. That might be the case. You just have to find the one where you are cut out, and then you'll excel in that area. So figuring out your strengths, focusing on what your leadership style is, and then finding a plan and a process to go forward, it's going to make a lot of difference for you. So if you'd like to, Rachel, open up for comments. I have a few names of people where I've seen their leadership style shine through. But if anybody else wants to throw out some names, if they see any in here and want to give names, because I think the strategist I struggled with, I wasn't able to find a strategist. And then the change catalyst I think I found was Jeff Immelt from GE. He did a huge turnaround story. And I also have a feeling, I think that he's a coach also. His leadership style is also as a coach, because he had quite a few people beneath him that he actually groomed as CEOs for their own companies. The transactor is a deal maker. I think that person is, obviously we've seen somebody who's a deal maker who's really gone out there. And that's Donald Trump is a transactor. That's his leadership style. Let's see, the builder I have for Steve Jobs, and the innovator, Rachel, has anybody sent any comments?
No one sent any yet, but let's give everybody a minute. Folks, you can write in any suggestions for these 8 archetypes. You can put it, if you put it into the question box, and we'll be able to pull them up and read them.
I'm just going to go through a couple more. Like the communicator, I had Ariana Huffington and Oprah. These are people who are influencers in their field. I did struggle a little bit with the coach. The processor, I think, is Warren Buffett. I believe he's very good at acquiring companies and bringing systems in place to help them grow and thrive. The innovator, we have the innovator and the builder who have creative ideas and entrepreneurial activity. Sure, there's Elon Musk. There's Bill Gates, there's Steve Jobs. Anybody else? Because I'm hitting some that are really obvious, but I'd love to hear if you know any others that are not so quite obvious that you've interacted with or that you've heard from recently or read an article.
Well, we had in the comment box Elon Musk, who you just said, for innovator.
Right. Yeah, he's the innovator, definitely. Because people who are the innovator really are only focused on creating new things, finding new ways forward. And the builder, I think, is definitely Steve Jobs. It wasn't just that he had an idea or a vision, but he had a dream of creating something and having the talent and determination to make that dream come true. And I think that's where he fell in for that one. Anybody have a strategist? Because I had a hard time with a strategist. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of suggestions for any of them, but I think that's okay.
I'm just going through it pretty quickly. So that's it. That's pretty much it for everything that we've discussed so far. I wanted to say thank you and before I open it up to Q&A, and I wanted to let you know that there is some bonus material. I will, if you send me an email to Christina@ChristinaHolloway.com, I will forward you a copy of an ebook on power dynamic and an ebook on create powerful change, which includes worksheets for getting ready for the new year. And then I also can include the PowerPoint and the speaker notes with links to all of the information that I discussed. That includes the books I referenced and the studies that I used to create the PowerPoint. And then I'm also offering to the first 10 people who send an email a 60 to 90-minute strategy session so I can help with any type of leadership questions or issues that you might have. Just so you, and it's just a free bonus that I'm offering for this webinar. And then if you're interested, I do have a Next Level Leader program starting in December, and it's a 4-week program where we go through the 5 pillars and the framework, and from there we use it to implement it, and then it also includes templates, worksheets, and toolkits to get you ready for 2018, getting the year started on the right foot, and going through some of the internal work that'll get you ready and going for the next year. So those are all of the bonus material, and that's everything that I'll be able to send to you if you send me an email directly, or if you send Rachel an email, respond back to the webinar, they'll be able to forward it to me, and I'll be able to send you all of the information. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and I'm open to questions for the rest of the time, the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, great. We'll jump into questions. And I wonder, Christina, if you could also let us keep that slide up of the 8 archetypes in case folks think of other ones. Like, okay. I was wondering if you had to pick for Barack Obama, which archetype might he be? Maybe the communicator?
Yeah, maybe. I was trying to figure him, and that's another thing that's a good point. That people do have multiple. They can have multiple leadership archetypes, and then what you want to do is find the one that really you excel at. And I would put him as maybe the strategist.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about other public? Are there any other public figures you can think of that folks might want to have matched, like? You mentioned our current president, Donald Trump, and Steve Jobs. I wonder, Hillary Clinton, if you think she falls into one of these?
I would guess these days that she wants to be the communicator and act as an influencer.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're welcome to give me names. I think I can place them if you give me names of people. Because I was doing this at the last minute, which is why I kind of played around with it a little and seeing if people had feedback or comments or anything like that. So.
Well, let's jump into some other questions, and we can, of course, keep talking about I'm seeing some other, like the strategist CEO of Blackstone or Ken Griffin at Citadel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's very much a strategist. That's a great one. Yeah, Ken. Mm-hmm.
What about, someone asked specifically about John McCain. Where would you place him?
Ooh. Exercise and efficiency. I would put him as a processor.
So let's jump in.
The definition of being a processor is an executive who likes organizations to be smoothly run and well-oiled machines. They're very effective at setting up structures and systems needed to support an organization's objectives. I'm open to interpretation, but I put him as an efficiency expert, as well as Warren Buffett. I put him there too. His Berkshire Hathaway, I think, is quite an example of efficiency.
And someone's asked, where would you put Vladimir Putin?
Ooh. I would put him as a change catalyst. He's definitely turned around Russia, hasn't he? He came in with a vision, and he wanted to make changes. He loves a messy situation. They are masters at re-engineering and creating new organizational quote-unquote blueprints. I'm reading the definitions from the article, but yeah, I'd make him a change catalyst.
Yeah, and some comments from some of our webinar participants are that maybe also he could be a strategist for Putin?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's,
so it seems
a
like people can be multiple.
They can be multiple, yeah. So, to be clear, he may have been a change catalyst when he first came on the scene. He had quite a bit that he needed to change. Once he reached that, once he made the changes that he wanted for the most part, he became a strategist on how to tweak his vision even more. So yeah, there is some of that.
And we have another suggestion that a communicator might be Joel Osteen, the pastor.
Oh yeah, definitely an influencer. Those are almost, you start to see them very much, the influencers. Tony Robbins is also an influencer. Yeah.
So do any of these archetypes hold more weight as a leader than others?
Well, what you'll see is, just like we've discussed, certain archetypes of leadership are going to be more noticed. I haven't heard anybody come up with a leader that they saw as the coach, a form of people development. We haven't talked about it, and even I struggled a little bit with finding it, although I thought Jeff Immelt, I'm almost positive he's the CEO who helped groom a number of CEOs below him, and they went on to do big things themselves. But that's a little bit under the radar. We don't really see it as much. I think that when we're looking at the type of leader prototypes who have gone really big, we've seen the strategist and the change catalyst, and then we've seen the builder and the innovator. Obviously, those four are kind of coming up hotter because those are really big areas these days. The innovator and the builder, we're seeing quite a great innovation these days, so that one's coming up faster too. That one's popping up more. So strategy, taking a turnaround situation, and then anybody in innovation and new developments is actually a big one.
And someone was saying that maybe for a coach, what about Janet Yellen, a processor thinking of women, maybe as someone to fit into the processor category? And also, where might you place Bill Gates, was asked.
Bill Gates, I would make him an innovator. Here, Bill Gates, he possesses a great capacity to solve extremely difficult problems, and he's focused on the new. His ideas about the processor, about the personal computer and the operating system were very new. And then what makes him different from Steve Jobs and the builder is that Bill Gates came up with a new technology, but Steve Jobs came up with not just a new technology, but building us a new way of life with that technology. So he went a step further. It was a little bit different. And actually, I'd say Steve Jobs is both the builder and the innovator. But you can see he did too. And then the builder part is what really shined all the way through to the end for him.
And that's really helpful for you to parse those out and let us clarify the difference. When you think of Bill Gates, though, now he's a philanthropist. I mean, would that change, or would you still say that innovator leadership style is what he's leading with now?
Yeah, because the second half of it possesses a great capacity to solve extremely difficult problems. And from what I recall, his Bill Gates Foundation has been coming up with ways to find water in developing countries, and ways to use, I think, to go to the washroom because they don't have facilities for them to use the washroom in a sanitary way. So quite close to what he's been doing. And I would consider him more the innovator. I don't actually see him as any of these others, but it's possible he could be. But less the builder and more the innovator. He's just always coming up with new ideas, and in fact using his platform, same as Elon Musk, using his platform for pushing even further. It wasn't enough to do the electric car for Elon Musk, but now he's doing an electric grid, and he's pushing his innovations even further, and then going into outer space and exploration. Here's one, Sir Richard Branson. I struggled with putting Richard Branson in here as well. He might be the builder. He's built quite a big empire.
So if you mentioned also that sometimes people fit multiple of these styles, so then what is the magic style for them to work towards? And would we say that maybe these are innate styles, or can you kind of move between?
So if they had multiple, so yeah, so here's where it works. Part of it is looking at your strengths and developing your strengths and taking a look inside of exactly where you find you're gravitating. And then you wouldn't use these archetypes as a way to define yourself. You would use your strengths to gravitate towards one of the archetypes that's going to help you move forward according to your plan and strategy. And that is why they have multiple ones. The first one that I mentioned was, let's see, who did I mention? But I think it was Bill Gates. He came up with something innovative, and then he's trying to solve problems. Or no, it was Steve Jobs. He came up with a new innovative concept, but then what he wanted to do was really build a new lifestyle around it. So he started out as an innovator, and then he became a builder. But he used his strengths, and if you asked him, you know, if you happened to ask him before, is this your leadership style? He might not have said, yeah, that's how I identify. But it turns out that that's how he actioned himself. That's how he actually went out and did the work, is that he actioned himself through that type of definition. So I don't want to be misleading and to say, oh, we can just read this article and I find myself as the coach, as a person who wants to develop people. Certainly, that's my style. And I didn't realize that in the beginning. So for a long time as a consultant, I wasn't really developing people. But I found that people would come to me and ask me for development work. And I found that to be interesting. And once I tapped into that and realized it seems that I gravitate toward this being my strength and that I get a lot of positive feedback for it, I think I'm going to explore this and see where it takes me. And it turns out that it was a form of development for me, a form of leadership where I naturally gravitated to there, and now I found where I'm doing well. But for other people, they might say, I think I see myself 2 or 3 places in here. If that's the case, build a strategy around one of them. Find out if you can play around with it, and then ask yourself, well, is this working the way I thought it would? Are my strengths playing out the right way? Maybe my strengths aren't enough to keep me in the innovation section or the builder section. Maybe my strengths really make me a strategist, and I didn't realize it at first. I would say that the work I was doing before made me a processor, an exercise in efficiency, and that worked for me for 13 years. As a boutique management consultant, that being a processor made my business very successful. But then I started to shift and realize that in order to make great efficiency in the systems, it helps to develop the people so that they know how to do the systems. So for me, it was a 1-2, one first and then the other one. Does that answer the question?
I think so. That's really helpful, that we have to sort of make a choice. Is there a questionnaire or something that could help us figure this out? You know, reading them, not quite sure where I fit. Is there some other resource I could use that might, you know, answer some questions that might place me in an archetype?
Oh, that's a good question. Since this is Manfred Ketstevries' article, and that these archetypes, he actually in his article gives you explanations for each one. He explains why they're important and what makes people gravitate to each one of them, and why it's important to say these are the archetypes, and you don't have to fit into each one specifically, but that there's plenty of room for evolution. So I wouldn't say there's questionnaires, but he goes deeper into the description so that it's a little bit more detailed than what I have up here.
Great. So folks can read the article, and that might be helpful. And it sounds like some of it's in choosing your own strategy and making your own plans that you might, and looking at your own strengths to determine where you want it, what type of leader you want to be, and how you might begin working towards that.
Yeah, because so as an example for me, I would not be a strategist, not a strong one, and I would not be a transactor. I would not be a good deal maker. Not that I couldn't do it, it's just that I don't gravitate toward there. And I would do it if I had to. I would certainly come very, very prepared. but it wouldn't naturally feel like something that I'd want to be in.
And if we could go back to some of the earlier topics you talked about, I have a question here that is, I have just started a business and I have no employees. Is there a specific aspect of your leadership approach that would apply specifically to someone in my position?
So my follow-up is, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to hire people? Are you trying to grow your business and make revenue without additional people as a solopreneur? That's possible too. Is there any follow-up?
It might take them a moment to type in.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Work as a solo.
Oh, so okay. So the point is to try to grow yourself as a leader, working independently as a solo person.
Yes, that was Emily's answer.
Okay, and the question was about which area is more specific. I would say that the framework, which is as a business owner who's a solo business owner, it's all about making sure that you're networking appropriately and that you have a communication style that tells people, I'm confident and I know what I'm doing, and this is the type of work that you want to buy from me. So so you definitely want to go through those pillars and then decide. I think those pillars help with new business owners because it helps you find your mission, your vision, and your and your way forward, your plan. And then it also helps you determine where is your target market, who are you going to reach out to, and then when you work on your communication, they want to turn around and say, oh my God, I can't believe I haven't been with you, I haven't hired you before. You're the one who can solve my problems. Please come along and take my money. That is where you want a business to be. Take my money.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so the 5 pillars in the framework work really great with solopreneurs or anybody who's just building their business and doesn't have anybody working for them. What it comes down to is really knowing who you are as a business owner and what your marketable offering is, and then being able to sell it effectively, and then being able to expand from there if you want to.
Great. I have another question from Michael, which is there any modification to these thoughts for someone in the nonprofit sector?
Modifications for the framework?
General thoughts on leadership, yeah.
Not really, no. So, and I work with nonprofits, and when it comes to leadership development, when it comes to nonprofits, you want money. You want people to give money, and you want them to donate to your cause. So your ability to stand in with your power and to say, my cause is important. I find it valuable for these reasons. This is how we give back to the community in this way. You should be able to, 1, create the plan, 2, figure out who your network is that includes your donors, 3, develop a strategy for reaching those donors and being able to get them on board with you, and repeat donors. You want people who are going to repeat every year, contribute, and be lifetime advocates for your cause. And then you're also looking at, how do I show up as the head of this nonprofit, and how do I wear this nonprofit on my shoulders, pretty much, to say that these are important issues and I believe wholeheartedly in them.
Wonderful. I have a question here that you asked earlier about. A lot of being a leader is making the right decisions. So what questions might I ask ourselves to determine if an opportunity is the right next step?
I'm just trying to process the question. So it was about, I'm just going to try to repeat it. Making the right choices as a leader is not easy. It's quite difficult. So what you're asking is, what type of questions could I ask if I'm faced with a decision, or what type of questions should I ask when I want to move into a new area? Just could you read it back, Rachel?
Yep. What question might you ask yourselves to determine if an opportunity is the right next step?
So you'd want to ask yourself, is this taking me closer to the vision that I had for myself? Is this pushing me outside my comfort zone? And if it is, I want to stand in there and I want to understand why. If you're uncomfortable because it seems completely impossible and it forces you too far outside your comfort zone, you can take a step back, but you have to be able to recognize it. If it forces you outside your comfort zone and you think, this is exciting, this is something I've never done before, I'm willing to take the challenge, there is no question that's the type of job that you really want to move toward. And then if, like I mentioned, if I'm a coach and somebody comes up to me with an opportunity to be a strategist, I'm going to take a minute and think about, where are your strengths? How can you contribute successfully to this project? And if you can't, if you just realistically are going to look at it and say, this is not something where I'm going to be successful unless I have a lot of extra help and I'm willing to learn this new feature because I believe it'll help me grow, don't take it.
That seems really useful. I have another question here that's sort of responding to what you were sharing for our business owner, which is, how would you define a transactor, and what do you mean by deal making?
Well, the transactor and the deal making is what Manfred Ketz de Vries had mentioned. That's one of the leadership styles. So his definition is that these executives are great deal makers. They are skilled at identifying and tackling new opportunities, and they thrive on negotiation. So let's think for a minute that Warren Buffett might be a deal maker also. He acquires businesses. These are some of them for mergers and acquisitions too. People who are the heads of mergers and acquisitions are great deal makers. They have skills in negotiation, and they know how to get the best from both sides. It's a win-win. Those are people who are good transactors, and they navigate the world that way. They don't just. It's not just the business that they do or their leadership style. It's more about how they navigate every day. It's just in tuned. It's something that they're good at. I would say that for any leadership style here. It's something that you just gravitate toward because you have the skills and the strengths to go and do it well.
So it matches your natural strengths.
Yeah.
I have another question here. The 8 archetypes appear to describe deserving leaders, but some people are simply attracted to the power associated with leadership roles, and they're willing to push their way up to the detriment of the organization. So how do good organizations protect themselves from bad apples? Or how might we protect themselves from identify bad leaders?
Yeah, so let's see some examples. Well, first of all, this question, whether they meant it or not, has a lot to do with culture, developing the culture of a business and being careful not to have people like that gravitate to the top. But of course, we all know the reality of what cultures are in businesses is nothing like what the formula is that we read in business schools or in articles. So developing a healthy culture helps. But if we look at Uber, for example, the CEO there, who happened to be the person who came up with the idea and started as a startup and then was promoted up to CEO, he didn't have a healthy culture, and it kind of imploded in his face. And yeah, he might have been quite ambitious, and he may have had the best intentions, but because that wasn't his strength, developing the culture was a very big blind spot that he just didn't see for himself, and it caught up to him. I had another name of somebody else who was a good example, but I can't remember it now. Pardon me, but it escaped me. So eventually the people they will be ambitious, they will grow, get all the way to the top, and what we find sometimes is that those people who got there and pushed their way to the top, again, it's about attitude, and that's kind of where I was talking about before. You can make your way all the way to the top with your behavior, with luck and with opportunity, by following your strengths. If your attitude is really not that strong, eventually someone will come by and topple you. Eventually people will push themselves too far and they'll get toppled. And that's not to say it happens every time, and it's not to say that it's easy for that to happen, but sometimes it takes a really big push for somebody to realize, oh, I went too far and this wasn't the best avenue.
So it sounds like also part of your answer is you can identify potential bad leaders by identifying attitudes that people hold.
Right, and if you see that this person's a strategist but is using it for their own personal gain, I tell people also, if the culture doesn't fit your values and your mission, then leave. Don't stick around. And if you see, I'm going to guess that this person might have experience with a bad leadership role in front of them, and if that's the case and it becomes intolerable, then you have to figure out, you have to make a decision for yourself. If you're unhappy here, find a new job. It's not that easy to say, oh, just find a new job, but definitely start to make a plan for yourself that this is not where you want to go, and it's a learning point for you. I decided that I don't like working with these types of people, or this is a little ugly for me, and I'd rather focus in another area. And then you can build a plan over the next few months to make that change.
Great. We're at 12:56, and so I want to honor our time. And I know we still have more questions we didn't get a chance to get through, and I apologize about that. But we're so thankful for Christina for giving her time to us today to share these wonderful blueprints for learning about your own unique leadership styles and some practical tools to help us accelerate our careers. And for these bonus materials that you can see are on this last slide. Thank you, Christina, so much for taking the time to be with us. And thank you, all of you who are listening, for attending the University of Chicago Career Month's webinar. Please check our website. We're having webinars every day in November, except for the week of Thanksgiving. So please check back, see if there's anything else that interests you. Christina, do you have anything else you want to say?
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for attending. And if you have additional questions and you'd like to have open dialogue with me, feel free to send me an email, and I'm happy to continue the conversation afterwards.
Great. Thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your Friday.